to my channel. I am so excited for this video. It being Turner Syndrome Awareness Month, I want to do a couple of videos about sharing your story and a couple different ways of sharing your story. Today I want to talk about sharing your story on YouTube. So I have had a lot of girls comment or message and tell me they love the idea of sharing their story on YouTube, and you know, they really wanted to get started and kind of asking some tips. And so I want to talk about that today. First, I want to give a little summary of how I got started sharing my story on YouTube. If you go to my videos and filter it for oldest to newest instead of newest to oldest, like is the default, one, please don't judge my videos from then, because oh my gosh, it was rough and I've learned so much since then. That being said, if you go back, I didn't start talking about Turner Syndrome for a good year and a half, maybe even 2 years of having my channel. And I did not start my channel intending to share about Turner Syndrome on it. Initially, I really wanted to document planning me and Andrew's wedding. That was so much fun. And those are the first videos on my channel. Then I switched into kind of vlogging. And not kind of, I was like full on vlogging and vlogging our life as newlyweds. It was so much fun. And through getting so hooked on and in love with sharing that way, we got to the point of wanting to have the fertility testing done to know what was going on with me. And if you've been around since then, you saw that whole journey. If not, you can actually go back and watch those vlogs. I vlogged the whole thing of having fertility testing done, getting the results, processing it, our whole journey with that. And through that, I knew I was going to have to explain why I was starting that way, right? Like I was going to have to tell what was even making me do this and why I was doing this. And I knew it mattered enough to me to document and share it that I was okay with sharing about Turner Syndrome. Up to that point in my life, I had not been that public about it. I had never posted about it on Facebook. I really didn't even tell that many people that knew me in real life. There was a select few people I talked to about it on a regular basis outside of my family, and that was it. Telling somebody for me was a big deal. A big deal. I was worried about their reaction of trying to even explain it, and worried about them understanding because it's such a complicated thing. That pushed me into doing that, and I made that first video where I shared that I had Turner Syndrome. Out of all of that came a diagnosis of Turner Syndrome. I didn't go into very much detail. I had shared a little bit of my story before, not exactly what it was, not that it was a genetic condition or anything, but I shared a little bit of my original diagnosis story earlier and kind of just explained that more then and explained what it meant for me fertility wise. Then I started getting a flood of comments of girls and women that also had Turner Syndrome thanking me for sharing and thanking me for talking about it because nobody was talking about it. And then I just couldn't stop talking about it. I was super passionate about encouraging others in so many different ways. I myself personally went into this huge time period of learning more about it than I had ever known in my life. And it was really incredible for me to share that with others. I loved giving that to others as I found it because it was such a process for me to try to find that information. And I knew that if I had had someone that had Turner Syndrome to watch as a kid, it would have helped me so much, and it would have been amazing to have somebody like that to watch. So for those reasons, I became so passionate about it. And then I started just collecting stories. I wanted to hear anybody and everybody's story of Turner Syndrome, how they were diagnosed, what complications they have, what symptoms there were, the whole thing. I was so enthralled with hearing more and more stories and getting to talk to others that had it. I'd never had that kind of connection and community, specifically around Turner syndrome before. And it was just the biggest blessing. I can't even fully put into words. I might start crying. I didn't know I needed it until I had it. And the way I got it was through being very open and personal with my story and taking that step of being vulnerable in that way and stepping out of my comfort zone. So for sharing your stories, specifically on YouTube, I do want to go into some tactical stuff, like more practical YouTube-y tips type stuff. But first and foremost, I want to say boldly step into your story. If you're going to be sharing your story, you want to boldly be confident in it and give yourself that permission to embrace that. It's going to be scary. It's going to feel weird at first. It's going to be strange to be talking about it so publicly. It'll be nerve-wracking waiting for comments or whatever to roll in, but I promise you, you can push past that, and it's worth pushing past that. And only you can tell your story the way you know it. Anybody could share somebody else's story in a certain way. Nobody can share that person's story the way that person can. Nobody can share my story the way I can. And while I do my best to give you guys a platform to share your stories, I know letting you tell your own story is the absolute best way for that to come out. So I would encourage you, first and foremost, to be confident in that and step into that boldly. Now some YouTube tips. On the platform of YouTube, there are a few things you want to think about, whether it's on the video production side or whether it's just navigating YouTube, dealing with YouTube, how to use the Creator Studio, stuff like that. That is good to know and helpful to know. So if you are just looking to get your story out there, you really want to make sure you tell it in the most creative, best way possible you can and really show your uniqueness and let it shine. And so going into how you tell a story, specifically for YouTube, you're talking video. So let's talk about equipment for a second. So many people you can watch that give YouTube tips on YouTube will say equipment doesn't matter. And I concur. I agree with that. All I had when I started my channel was my phone. It was an iPhone, several generations old at this point. And oh man, while the camera was really good for then, things have gotten so much better now. Your smartphone is totally enough. Now, there are some tricks you want to do to make sure you're getting the best video quality you can out of your phone, but do not wait till you can get a separate camera to get started, because all you need is your phone. So some of those things you want to think about when you're taking the video is lighting. Lighting is huge. If they can't see you, I've had this happen where I thought the lighting looked better than it did, or I thought it was good enough, and it really wasn't. And if you watch those old videos of mine, you'll see lighting matters, guys. Take it from somebody who's made that mistake far more times than I would like to admit. Lighting matters. So, using natural lighting, studio producers, people that do videos for a living would kill for natural light, quality light. There's bulbs you can buy to imitate it because it is what video loves, and videographers love natural lighting. So if you can sit in front of a window for 5 minutes and tell a part of your story, you're good. Or, to be honest, in a pinch, I have used the light that you can get from your phone. Phones now will do the selfie light. So it'll illuminate the screen and help illuminate your pretty face. And that's enough. The next part's audio. Audio matters as well. You want to make sure that they can hear you and that any audio problems or any level of audio quality you do have isn't distracting in any way. So if you have your hand over the thing and they can't hear you, not helpful. If it's crackling because you're hitting it with your sleeve or something like that, you want to know. That's going to matter. If it's too far away, it's going to make a difference. So paying attention to your audio so it's not distracting and they can actually understand you and hear you is super important. I will put a side-by-side of the audio quality from my GMAC action camera to my GoPro that I just got. The audio difference is insane. I wanted to show you guys what this looks like. Thing as far as numbers or information goes, and that's the kind of thing you want to pay attention to. Usually on phones it's not too bad, but I have made the mistake of covering it myself where I made it so they couldn't hear me. So that's something to think about. The next thing is getting it heard. In general, in the YouTube community, people talk about share your video everywhere and you really just want to focus on subscribers. I mean, depending on what your goals with sharing your story on YouTube are, sure, those are things to pay attention to. The biggest thing I would say is don't be scared to share the link to your video or your channel. It doesn't have to be spammy. It's really just a, hey, I made this. I wanted to share this and this really matters to me and it's important everybody sees it that can. It's important to me that it gets out there. So not being ashamed to share it. I know at first it can feel weird. You don't want people judging you and you don't want to look spammy like you're trying to push people to your channel, but it doesn't have to be that way. And you really want to get in a habit of that because that's what tells everybody, hey, your video's there for the people that follow you on whatever social media you're on, whether it's sharing with your friends and family on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. That's important. So once that video is uploaded and live, share it everywhere. The next part of getting it discovered, once it's heading on to YouTube, is making sure your thumbnails, titles, and tags are searchable. So this goes into more advanced, like you really want to grow your channel type things. Thumbnails are what gets people's attention. Titles are what pops up when people search. And tags, there's currently debate on whether tags matter or not. For small YouTubers, from what I've heard, it really is helpful. So I really believe if you are optimizing those three things, that's really, really good to pay attention to. You want to have a nice, clean, attention-grabbing thumbnail. You want to have a good title that is not just searchable, but also piques people's interest and already starts the process of storytelling. Then tags, you want to tag things that are relevant. You don't want to fall into the trap of clickbaiting just to get people's attention to your story. So if you put something in the title or the thumbnail that isn't actually applicable to what the video is about, it's going to turn people off. And then YouTube won't recommend it to other people, which is a whole other thing that you want to think about, is if YouTube's going to recommend it. Those three things are what YouTube looks at. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. They're a search engine. People search things on there. I know I do. And those are important things to think about. So that is how you can kind of work on getting your story out there, getting your story told and putting it out there. And then the other thing I really want to recommend that you think about before and during sharing your story on YouTube is your privacy, and really setting boundaries and making it clear what you are okay with sharing and what you're not. It's still the internet. It's still something that's a public platform that anybody can find. So you really want to be careful and be conscious of ahead of time how much you want to share, what kind of details you are wanting to share. I don't want to say that to scare you, but as far as safety goes, I want to make sure it's something you're thinking about. Being aware of while you're making a video, not sharing your location, not giving too much away that is unsafe. I could go into a whole video about internet safety, and I might at some point, but just take that as a caveat too, that you want to be careful and you want to think ahead for what you are and are not okay with sharing, and making sure you have things in place that are keeping you safe. Putting rules on yourself if you're not sharing these or these details. And just reminding yourself of those safety practices. That is something to think about also. So, and then the last thing I want to say is just really have fun with it. It does not have to be this super stressful thing. It's video creating. It's creative. It's supposed to be fun. And if you're not passionate about it, it shows. So tell stories that you're passionate about. Tell your stories that you're passionate about and that you really want to share. And it is incredible how important sharing our story becomes when we see the impact it can have on others. Whether it's educating, whether it's encouraging, inspiring, whatever the impact is, it's so amazing to see the impact our story can have. So I hope that encourages you. I hope this was helpful. I love talking YouTube. If you guys have any specific questions about sharing your story on YouTube, whether it's a Turner syndrome story or not that you're thinking about, please leave them in the comments below. And I'm not in any way an expert, but I am an avid student and I love talking about it. So I would love to help answer any questions you have. And I hope this really was helpful. If it was, give it a thumbs up, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications on so you will make sure you know when another video comes out. And I will see you guys in that one. Bye.